Welcome to the Wisdom Check by Tabletop to Keyboard. This is going to be our bi-weekly podcast where we discuss things such as Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, I think maybe we need to turn up my mic a little bit, guys. How about some more game? More game. This is the Wisdom Check. This is the intro to end all intros. Talk about Dungeons, Dragons, and
Now, I don't think that's proper. This is a family show after all. This is the intro we can use, fellas. It's good, clean fun for everyone. Welcome to the Wisdom Check, where we have wholesome conversations about the dilemmas we face every day.
Nah, hold on a second. I got your intro right here. Yeah, that's better. Welcome to the Wisdom Check. Well, I'm right, Jeff's wrong. We're going to have guests on to talk about it. It's going to be awesome, because I said so.
He is right. He did say so. I don't know. Is surf music the best music for a podcast about D&D?
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
This just in, nobody can agree on our intro for this podcast. So we're just going to start. Welcome to the Wisdom Check. Roll for initiative. Fuck. A 1. It's like every time.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Wisdom Check. I'm Jeff. I'm in a new location. You may have noticed I've completed my move, but that's not really that important. What is important is I'm joined here with my co-host, Dustin, over there in the corner. Hey. And we are joined tonight with Anna B Meyer, and she is a cartographer, and she has been on some really big projects. If you've been following Dungeons and Dragons at any point in your life, and you know anything about Greyhawk in particular, she's responsible for some of the best maps I've ever seen. So welcome to the channel tonight, and go ahead and say hello to everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So chat, we're going to go ahead and jump into our usual good stuff here. We're going to get into some of our usual questions. So typically we like to start off finding out a little bit about you and how you kind of came into the gaming world. You know, what was it that brought you into the game?
It was kind of funny. It was a friend of a friend, someone who I don't know, actually went up. I grew up in Sweden. I moved to California almost 9 years ago now. So I started back in Sweden when I was like 15 years old. This is like 79, 80. So it's the first wave of role-playing gamers. And someone had been in America and got a Xerox copy of the Red Box or one of the really early editions of D&D and one set of dice. And a friend of a friend came over to our house and me and my brother and stuff, we tried, and they needed someone else to play. And I haven't read Tolkien. I didn't know anything about fantasy. I didn't know what an elf or halfling or hobbit or anything was that way. So they simply say, you have to sit down and play this game. It has something to do with knights and warriors and dragons and stuff. So I sat down and played and didn't understand one iota the first time, so to speak. And I died like half an hour into it. And,
oh, no.
Stupid. But then they simply say, well, we're going to play tomorrow or some soon, and you have to come back again. And I think maybe it was or a week. I forgot. It was so long time ago. But we played fairly soon again. And that's when we had one of the other guys that ran the game, and he was much better at it. He understood how the game functioned. And that's when the light came on and was like, wow, this is a world. You can do anything and so on. So that's when the first embryo of this is something cool. This is something that I can actually be interested in. So that's when it started early on that way. And I didn't realize it was something nerdy, that it wasn't cool, that you was not supposed to do if you were supposed to be a cool kid or anything. So we started playing and it was great fun. And I started reading fantasy and it became one of my passions in life. Yeah.
Very nice. What were the early fantasy books that you kind of got into?
We didn't have much. Remember, this is Sweden in a small town out there. So I went to the library, and the first thing I read was the Bilbo in Swedish translation, the old Swedish translation, which is horrible. It's a book for 6-year-old Swedish kids who are supposed to be shielded from anything evil or whatever. So it was horrible. Nice. But someone told me you have to read the English. So I read the English book, Bilbo, and that was was way better. And then I read Lord of the Rings, and I was hooked. So then fantasy was for me, so to speak. So we played some Traveler, a whole bunch of other role-playing games as they came out back in the early 80s. And then I was part owner of a game store, and we organized some conventions, and so that was. Yeah, so that was just part of having fun. So role-playing games became one of my hobbies for years and years. And Greyhawk we had some of we had a dungeon master, that the first one that ran games for us the first couple of years. He was simply fantastic. And I was wondering, where do these original cool stories come from? Mm-hmm. And he said that, well, it's a secret, and so on. And I could tell some of it was Tolkien, but a lot of it was not. And so I realized that, but I didn't know much about fantasy. But then the Greyhawk box came out in '83, mm-hmm. and it came to that they're opening Gothenburg a game store, and they had the box. I had one copy of it, and I opened it, and because it wasn't shrink wrap back then, so you can actually peek in and look at it. So I looked at it and started reading and realized this is where the stories come from. This is Pandora's box. So I bought it, and I had vacation somewhere. I think it was back in Yugoslavia back then. So I read that thing over vacation in Dubrovnik, and Dubrovnik is a medieval city. So it was a city cool. wall and stuff. People, they go there for Game of Thrones and stuff. So I read that in Dubrovnik and sitting there, and it was fantastic. I was absolutely hooked, meaning Greyhawk became my fantasy world where I started running games. And then our DM, he got a scholarship, so he went off on study somewhere else, and we like, what are you going to do now? And so we took turns DMing, and when we DM'd a couple of times, everyone pointing, now you DMing from now on. You realize that. So then I was a DM for 20 years, and I really got a chance to play. So that was my destiny. And then that's why it's so wonderful to move to California, because there's so many players, and now you have a chance when you can play online with friends using virtual tabletops and stuff. So now I get a chance to play more than I run games, and it's fantastic. So yeah.
So did those early boxes for Greyhawk come with all the maps at the time?
No, they came with the Darlene maps, and that was the one of my inspiration. I realized there's maps with this, and maps. I've always been interested in maps to some degree, and I think my interest comes from several things. One is that I love maps and navigation and stuff. I've been a soldier and a pilot and stuff before, so navigation and maps have been a part of my daily life. I'm also an avid hiker and a landscape photographer, so I'm out taking pictures of landscapes. So I guess it started with the fact that when you're interested in role-playing games, you want to write the stories or the rules and so on. So you want to do things. You want to invent your own game and classes and the whole shebang. But I realized fairly quickly that writing wasn't my thing. But after a while, I realized that maps are probably something where I can be good at. So I started pencil and drawing, and I'm not much of a drawer. But then the computers, I saw it work. I saw digital maps. Mm-hmm. In the military, I saw digital maps early in the late 80s, early 90s. I saw digital maps and printed, and I was like, I want these for my games. And then when Bryce was a program that came out in the late 90s.
God, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And that's when I saw an ad for that in one of the computer magazines. That was like, I want that. And it said it was only for Mac. Yep. And I was like, there's one store that sells Mac in Stockholm. So I was called them. They said like, $5,000, you can get some Power Mac version 1 or whatever it was back then. And I was like, almost like, should I buy that just to get it? So I actually called the company in America that made Bryce. And they said to me, no, we're working on a Windows version. It will come out like in 9 months or whatever it was. So I waited, and I bought a new PC, and I started using Bryce. And it took hundreds of hours to tame that beast to do something I wanted it to do. But actually, my Greyhawk map is done using Bryce 3D.
Wow, really? The current one?
Yeah. The terrain is currently done in Bryce. Yes.
Wow,
that's crazy.
It started in my old Pentium 20 years ago, and I kind of did it one little piece. It's like 15,000 pieces or something. It's like ridiculous small amount of thousands of tiny little terrain bits that I then edited in Photoshop to kind of stitch them together and stuff. So it worked. It's a work of love over 20 years. So now I'm doing it again, starting it over again. But now I have way more modern tools that are light years better than, but I still kind of kept using Bryce. I went up to version 5, then they changed things, so I couldn't use the same file, so I stayed with version 5. that came out in like 90, what was like maybe 2000 or something like that. It came out, and I kept using it until 3 years ago or 4 years ago when I done the terrain, so to speak. Then I kept it and updated it a bit. But but now I use way more modern tools. Yeah.
So we were talking a bit at Gamehole Con about this, and you were saying that you had to write your own software or mods to adapt things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because most of the I use 3D tools like World Machine, View, Gaia, and stuff like that to do my virtual terrains with. But they are usually created. The programs are made to do small terrain bits, like a few kilometers or a few miles across, for computing games. That's what they're meant to do. And I'm working with continental scale maps, or like really large, that are thousands of miles across, and they don't have any rivers, for instance. So what I do is that it's visual 3D programming. So I basically have to program to stitch things together and to tweak them to make larger scale maps, and I also have to introduce river systems and stuff like that, and that needs to be programmed. So my job is kind of 1/3 programming and 1/3 or half is technical and half is artistic. Half is painting in Photoshop and deciding fonts and doing compass roses and stuff like that. That requires kind of an artistic eye, and the other half is kind of technical. It's landscaping, geology, 3D programming and stuff. So yeah.
Well, that's got to be a pretty rare combination of skills right there. Most people who are really good at the art stuff are not usually the people who can program. You usually don't see people who can put a foot in both of those fields.
Yeah, I think that's why I like photography too. It's a bit of the same kind of. It has one foot in the digital kind of technology, and the other is having the sense of what could be a good picture, and so I kind of merged a lot of my passions into one thing: landscaping and looking at things and mapping and geography with role-playing games. So because I wanted a map that is just like you have maps that are specialized for whatever you want to do. In your GPS unit, there's like a special map that is just very simple, easy to read, that takes you from one to A to B. But I wanted a map that was designed for dungeon masters to facilitate, to inspire and inform, so to speak, to help run the games. Meaning, what the terrain looks like, where do the orcs do their ambush, or what little hill, where should the character build their keep when they get rich, and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Now, and we were talking a bit about this before the chat, and you were saying that a lot of the struggle with putting together maps is to convince the original writers and everything that reality occurs sometimes in maps. It's
my Greyhawk project has the benefit of it's just me doing my hobby project, so to speak. But it's different when you do a map on commission for a publisher, because then they have an idea of this is the world, this is what it needs to look like, kind of. But on the other hand, they're usually not so visual. That's why they hire specialists like artists and cartographers like me and so on to do the job. So you have to kind of present something first, because they have some sketches and ideas, and then you have to kind of read between the lines and put things in there, and you have to kind of wow them into something, and then occasionally it works and they say, oh, it's awesome, it's great, and then something like, oh, this crap, it's not what I'm wanting, and we need to change things. So and often I realized you have to work backwards. First you have to present something that looks like crap just to get them to tell you how it should be. So they don't know what they want, but when they see it, they know that's not what I want, so to speak. So yeah.
It's really strange how people are much more adept at being critical than they are proactive.
Well, I did that on my Greyhawk map. Yeah.
They got a problem because, see, they get off the phone with you, then they have to call their writers and say, hey, that adventure path, you can't have them go through the mountains and come out in the meadow on the other side. It's got to be desert. Nope. The cartographer says there's desert. You got to change that. Rewrite the whole book.
And that's one of the things. I would love to have a setting where I just have a sketch and nothing else is written, and I could just come up with something and they can write the game setting for the map, so to speak. So that's the but I did when I did my Greyhawk map, I realized that I did it little piece by piece. So I often ask in the forums and stuff like, oh, I'm going to do this area. Can you come up with what I should put on the map and resources? And like cricket, no one said anything. And then I worked for months and I put something there that I thought, this is good. And people started criticizing the hell out of it. So I was like, maybe I can use this. So what I did was that I actually put something there was haphazard, missing a lot of stuff, was not done. And they criticized like crazy. I took the criticism as the work order and I did it, and all of a sudden they liked it until I told them what I did. Then they got real angry, some of the fans. Like, I told them that my worst critics are my best helpers. They're unpaid helpers, so to speak. And they got really pissy, a couple of them. So that was kind of, but it's one of the history. That was kind of funny. So good criticism is great. Even bad criticism is good, so to speak. So it's necessary. Yeah,
we got to acknowledge we just got a subscription from Archaeos for 40, so thank you for that. I will say, however, boo on you for stealing my carpenter in Conan Exiles, but the subscription will make up for it. I'll be okay with that. You can have my carpenter.
Oh man,
yep,
that's awesome. That shit just got real.
I'll learn to protect it next time. But it's really fascinating that, in this particular genre, unlike real world maps, there are elements that are fantasy. And I'm wondering if some of the tools that you've had to develop some of those modifications to this have been a result of the fantasy elements, or if it's just a functionality kind of thing.
It's a bit both, because I see the map as a balance. Maps are generally a balance between inspiration and information. If you take your GPS map that you have in your car, it's purely information, meaning it takes you from A to B. It doesn't need to inspire you, or there's very little disturbing element. And then take the other opposite map. If you go to a zoo or an amusement park, they usually have this kind of cool informational and with a cute map with the cute animals.
The You Are Here map. Yeah,
exactly. And they don't want to show you that there's actually 2 miles across a lot of bumps and hills, whatever, to get to the elephant pen that is somewhere else. They want to squeeze the distances and make everything cute and cuddly, and so you spend the whole day going around the zoo, and that's a perfect map that is very little information but a lot of inspiration, and so I want to get the balance right, because a map and you have to make, I make different versions of the same map, but basically I try to get a map that want to inspire DMs and players to come in an adventure and fill a location, like an empty plain need to have, or a forest need to have cool details that kind of facilitates adventures and encounters and stuff, but still inform how far is the distance, what kind of terrain, is it difficult, how long will the travel times be, etc., what the climate is, what kind of natural hazards would occur. So it's a kind of balance between information and inspiration, and the inspiration bit needs to be genre specific, meaning if you do something for a sci-fi game, it needs to look kind of techie and maybe a bit more raw and rough that way. But a fantasy needs to play its part. It needs to be part of, just like the setting book needs to. You have the parchment style, you have the fonts, you have the symbols and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that you need to think about. It's not only do the map, but that's kind of artistic, but it's part of it needs to be a functional tool that is that people want to look at for hours and hours. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'll say a lot of times with the old books, you'd crack it open, you'd look at those maps, and you'd see like a location, it didn't matter what else was on the map, because like that one location just jumped out at you. Yeah. Whether it's the name of the town or something looks strange about that area or something just a little odd, it's like immediately there's a mystery there, there's an adventure to be had.
Yeah.
And you were saying before that a lot of times, book authors and these things are putting out specific locations, places of interest and all that. They're kind of out there, but they aren't filling in the hinterlands, so to speak, out there, just the open spaces. And that's a space that you really honed in on.
Yeah, because
what kind of stories you tell there.
Yeah. Meaning the game settings are full of they have the jungle here, they have the desert there, the tall mountain here, the big swamp. They have the iconic locations that are full of monsters and full of adventures. But the problem is that if you go from the desert to a jungle, you need to have roughly 50% of the map is these transition areas that go from one to the other. Meaning you have the tallest mountain chain here, and you have the plains over here, but you have the foothills and all the stuff in between. And that's where I have to kind of fill in all these blank areas, which usually about 50% of the map is simply just a void that is not described in the books at all. It has no detail. It's just an empty green or an empty brown splotch on the map, and once you start filling it, so that is the lot where I put in majority of it, because the iconic areas are described to detail. So you do the iconic areas, and then you have 50 to 75% of the map to fill with something that will be logical to have in between the iconic locations.
And do they usually give you the iconic locations in relative direction from each other? Do they give you that sort of direction to go? Yeah, sometimes they do. You get the overall size, and then comes another problem, especially on the, not so much when you do homebrew for myself, you just expand in whatever direction you need. But once with commercial maps that they need to fit on a poster or a book page or whatever, so then you have to tweak it so you get it into whatever format the final product's going to be in. And that is a big issue sometimes, in order to get the detail in and still stay within the page, so to speak, or whatever, because they say, oh, we need another poster map. That means that you double the production cost. So then all of a sudden you have to have double the print run, and that means that the Kickstarter has to generate another $5,000, whatever it is, just to facilitate that, and then it's all the shipping cost that increases and stuff. So there's a lot of these kind of hidden production limitations and stuff that comes into when you do it as a commercial project, when you do commissions. So yeah.
I believe it. Speaking of commissions, we talked about that a little bit before the chat. Laugh Love Lindy.
We got a raid from Lindy.
Thank you,
Lindy.
Laugh Love Lindy. Yeah. Welcome, Raiders. Appreciate you guys coming in. For you joining in, I'll do a little recap. We are speaking with B Meyer, and she is a cartographer responsible for some of the most iconic maps in Dungeons & Dragons history. If you know anything about Greyhawk, she is responsible for all that amazingness. Now we're learning a bit about how she goes about putting together these maps and what goes into the process of coming up with the creative content that goes into it. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat there. And one of the things I was about to jump in on was Alexander Wrights was talking about that he was excited about having a cartographer on here to be interviewed, because he's been trying to track one down for 5 years.
Okay.
Now, we get to talk to you.
As I told you, you get commission work. You got to be careful when we put you in the Discord. People start hitting you up.
So we were talking about it before the chat, that you are in a really fortunate position to be booked up all the way through till the end of the next year. So
usually about a year to 2 years in advance, which is problematic for a lot of publishers, because they normally have a turnaround like a month or so. They go out looking for an artist and expect delivery within a month or so to fit the production schedules. So mine is more kind of part of the general production, so to speak. So thankfully now I'm getting, like with Cobalt Press, that I've done several projects, and I'm working on one that is not even announced yet. So now I'm in early, so to speak. Now I was actually engaged as early as the writers. So I was on board nice. as part of the core team that put it together from the get-go, so to speak. But I worked on that project that I'm currently working on. Now we've done probably about 80-90% now, and it's about a year. So it's a huge project.
Yeah, so these things take time. They're not just slapped together in a day and a half. So we're kind of if you are looking for work to be done, is that something that people could approach you about if they're
definitely it's just the time limitation, and I would say the biggest hindrances are money, but money's usually not the biggest one. So the biggest problem is time, that it takes months to do a project, and I'm usually booked months or maybe a year or longer in advance. And the other big hassle that a lot of projects fall over is the fact that I need sketches and details. And for example, like an author came to me and said, "Oh, I would love for you to simply map out my world for my novels." And I simply, I've written like 9 or 10 or whatever it was. Can you read them and do a map in like 3 months? And I'll simply say, if I'm going to read your books and take all the notes of all the locations, that will take 3 months, and you have to pay me a couple of $1,000 just for spending 3 months of hundreds of hours about that. So usually I turn down a lot of things, not because of money, but because I don't get the right data to work with, so to speak. So a good sketch, and it doesn't need to look good, but it needs to be detailed, and also to have a short description on each location. A paragraph, a sentence and there's like a barony here or a country there or a swamp. Put one little paragraph, like 10 words or 2 sentences, describing this is a cold marsh, or this is the swampy one full of crocodiles, or whatever it is. This is a demon-infested mountain range full of volcanoes, and or something like that. There's a dragon living here, and there's some undead necropolis that taints the area over in that forest. Stuff like that should show on a fantasy map. And sometimes it's really difficult for an author to realize, because they write in words and think in words. So it's hard for them to visualize, which is good for me, because that's why they pay me money to do the map and visualize the world. But the problem is that I need to draw that out of them. So to get the right information to work effectively, that's really tough. And if I see that they have someone has a problem to present that to me from the get-go, that will be like, no, you need to hire someone else. So that is a big thing. So prepare and plan how you're going to present the work for someone, regardless if you approaching me or some other cartographer. You need to have all that data easily, like 10 papers full of like number your sketch. This is area 1, and then have a short description. This is area 2, and have a short description. And try and then you realize you will get back a lot of things like rivers don't flow along the coastline for 500 miles and normally and so there will be an anomaly check that I will make and hand back, so to speak. But also criticize me. That's the other good thing. I will send over things and I will expect to be criticized. That's one thing you have to live with, that is actually good. In order to make something good, you have to take criticism.
Fantastic.
So we got a question from the chat here. Thunder Bay, I think he says, so Anna, is your Greyhawk work commissioned?
No, it's not. It's a hobby thing that I started just for my own campaign, and then the internet came around, and I started putting it on the internet, and then people started, oh, these maps are cool, and they wanted me to do it. And before I had a full-time job, and I lived in Sweden and stuff, so it was just a hobby. And then when I moved to California, I was like, I need something to do. So I sat down and finished my Greyhawk map. And then publishers started reaching out to me, and I started doing it. And doing commission work and stuff for Kobo Press and others. But now I kept it up and just for fun. And now Patreon came around, and I realized that, and I looked at and this is important, because you can't just sell something you do, because I don't have the rights to Greyhawk. It's Wizard of the Coast that have the rights for it.
IP is important these days.
Exactly, it's very important. But thankfully, Wizard of the Coast have 2 options, so to speak. You can, or 3. There's 3 options where you can do stuff. You can either file off the serial numbers and do it so generic that you avoid all the names and stuff like that, and then publish it and simply say, well, it's an alternative or whatever. You simply that's one way of doing it. The other way is that you can publish things on the DM's Guild, but it's not open for Greyhawk. And then you can sell it there, and Wizard of the Coast will take 50% of the revenue from it. And the third option is that you can release it as fan creation content. They even have a fan creation policy that if you give it away, you're not allowed to sell it, but if you give it away, so I put the Creative Commons on them. So all my Greyhawk maps are actually free to download, free to use. You can even make your own version. Even the source files are on my website, so you can make your own version, and you can release that one too for your own games.
For the record, while you're talking about it, those are the ones that we've linked down in the panel. If you're watching the stream, if you go down the panel, you will see there a panel that I've set up for Anna B Meyer stuff. You click that, and it'll take you to I believe, where you can download some of those maps or take a look at them if you're not familiar with the work. Those are the previews I'm being told. So those are the previews.
Oh yeah, and there's ghmaps.net or annabemeyer.com leads to my website, or you can have patreon.com/Anna B Meyer. And that's the thing, because the fan creation rules let you can take donations. And they even specifically name patrons, so you can actually solicit money. Yeah, so people can pay me in order to do Greyhawk maps to give them away to the community, and that's what people do. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, how scoped in do you go? Now we know you'll do like an entire worlds.
Yeah.
And you'll do cities. Do you go down to do you get to the point where you do you do like dungeon maps, like the actual
I've done a few. I've done a few. Yeah, I've done a few close locations too. There's so many others, that cartographers and stuff, that do that, and they do it fantastically. So I've only done a few here and there, and I did a city for Kobo Press for Southlands, for instance, Per Bastard. I designed that for I didn't design the city, but I did the map. Someone had sketched out what the city was supposed to look like, but I made it into a map, and I actually placed it in my terrain, so it's actually placed in the world, so to speak. So that was fun, and I have of course the city of Greyhawk is the most iconic location in the setting. So I'm someday I will tackle it, so to speak, but we're not really there yet, but I will. So I've done close up. I did one for a little cool project for Two King Games. There was some small iconic locations. There were like a bakery, and there were some old abandoned house manors and stuff like that. So
nice.
Yeah, so cool. A few here and there. So it's kind of a fun difference, but usually most cartographers and illustrators, they do maps like that. There are thousands that can do that, but there are not that many of us that do large area maps. That there are maybe only a dozen or so in the world that really do them professionally, so to speak.
So do you find go ahead. I was going to say, do you find it to be a different skill set dealing with the smaller maps versus the larger? I mean, because you're not dealing so much with tactics and what's difficult terrain, what isn't. You're dealing with larger, like we kind of talked earlier, you want to be like a climate scientist to a degree to understand the larger maps, right?
Yeah, and then you get into things like projections and stuff, meaning then you have questions like, is the world a sphere, a planet, or is it flat? Or some other version of it, meaning I'm starting thinking about mapping things like the abyss and the nine hells and other outer planes. All sorts of weird shapes and stuff. So you have to start mapping them, and how do you do that? So then you have it's a different mindset to some degree, and also that is, you have also different sets. You have one type of map that I will call an in-game map, meaning if the characters go to the big city because they need a map in order to traverse the kingdom and go across the mountains, whatever, they will go to the big city and get an in-game map. Something parchment that it's kind of sketchy and not really accurate and lead them astray and whatever. So that's one type of map. And then you have the map that the DM needs in order to know what the world really looks like. So he or she can plan the adventure and pick up all the locations and travel times and stuff like that. What cities they need to and what rivers to traverse and stuff like that. So so sometimes I have to do, for like Greyhawk, I've done both types of maps. So you have to kind of think from multiple angles when you do it.
Absolutely. Thunder Bay asks another question for you here. They want to know, do you always have that sort of thing on hand for your games?
Yes. Yeah. My games are meaning I run sandboxy games. So it's like often when you run other games, then overland travel is just like, someone described, you travel across the kingdom. It takes 3 months, and there's 3 things that happens, and there's few little description, and then you're in the other end of the kingdom. My journey is every day, everything.
Okay, meaning, so you're big exploration.
Oh, yeah. Meaning my campaigns rarely get more than 100 miles. That can take 3 months in game time to get that, because they encounter everything on the way, and that's a copse of trees, and there are things, and they get lost, and things happen. So it's very much a world simulation. So I run very sandboxy games, usually in a small area, and it's detailed down to everything, almost down to battle map.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's awesome. Yep. Are you into 5e then at this point? Have you progressed with D&D over time?
Oh yes, yeah. I run every edition of D&D. 5e I haven't run yet. I've only played in it, but I played using Greyhawk. I played in from first edition AD&D all the way up to I ran 4th edition for a bit, but then I skipped and actually went from 3.5 to Pathfinder. So I run Pathfinder 1. So now I'm thinking, should I go with Pathfinder 2? But should I stay with Pathfinder 1? Should I go with Pathfinder 2, or should I go with 5e? And I know that I have to run 5e because I'm invited to run games at D&D in a castle in England next year. So,
well, that will tip the scales a little bit.
Yeah. So I need to run 5e, but I'm also much a fan of Pathfinder rules. So I think that I will run a campaign using kind of a house-ruled PF2 version for because I played some PF2 and I like both of the game systems.
You've already played it. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm yeah.
But it's interesting because D&D, one of the things it doesn't particularly do well is rules for overland travel.
Exactly.
Like you just kind of, you're just traveling and you as the DM, it's all responsibility is up to you to just kind of, if there's random encounters or anything, you just kind of have to go with it as your there's really not anything there. So you kind of have to, you have to have a very strong homebrew background to run that kind of game. Like it's,
it was like, for Pathfinder 1, you had ultimate campaigns. That was one of the golden books for me, meaning it had tons of stuff that was interesting for me. So, but on the other hand, there are third-party rules like Strongholds, Followers, and Strongholds, and a bunch of other books that come out. So you can kind of homebrew or kind of add in these systems in 5e too. So, but I probably need to tweak 5e way more than I need to tweak Pathfinder 2. So, but I'm holding out. I'm waiting for the Game Mastery Guide for PF2. That will tell me if the Game Mastery Guide is as good as I hope it is, then PF2 will probably be the main system for my own campaign. But I also need to have 5e for various other things. So I kind of like both of them. So, Yeah,
we got a follow there from Grindelwolf, so thank you for that.
Thank you for the follow.
Welcome to the show.
We're approaching 300 followers here pretty quick, so
we'll have to come up with a prize for that, I think. Another giveaway. It's Oh, actually, I was about to ask a question, but it looks like Thunder Bay has one here. That map wandering style of game really lends itself to the infamous side quest. Is that something you encourage your players to pursue, that sort of sandbox?
Oh yes, because what I do is that I don't have an idea of this is going to happen. I simply have all the NPCs and all the stuff that lives in an area, and I simply have who runs this place, so to speak. What are the power brokers in an area, and what's their motives and their means, so to speak. And then I have a large area where I have illustrated with counters, like an old war game, where I put the dragons and the murder hoboing bandit gangs, the highway robbers, the evil overlord, that lich that sits in a tower somewhere. All these are around there, and every day in game they take a little idea what each of these are doing and what they're up, and I roll dice sometimes, and then the players, I let them loose, and then everything they see things, and in the beginning, a lot of the players, they think that everything is there to be killed or because it's part of the story. But in my campaigns, it's not. And the scary thing with the sandbox is that regardless of the player level, the character level, all the nasty things are in the world. Meaning, when you're first level, you have to. It's not just running around killing things to earn levels. In my games, it's navigating the world that is the tricky bit. So because the world is not, encounters aren't level appropriate, meaning some things you can just, if you go to a little tiny village, they have nothing to protect. They don't have a city guard that is particularly powerful. You can go in and murder hoboing the whole village fairly easy. The problem is that village might belong to someone, and they don't like when you go murdering hoboing, and then they can get angry. One example of that was back in the day when the characters were going through Furiundi during the Greyhawk Wars, and there were players who haven't played with me that much before, so I kind of landed them in the middle. They played a little bit, so they were like 5th or 6th level or something like that. So they feel, now we know this game. We can kill anything. So they went out there, and so there was a lot of dead Farundi knights and stuff. And there were some goblins poking around in the leftovers from the battle, and they were like, "Oh, awesome goblins! Let's go and kill them." So they ran off and started killing them. And then there was like one goblin or two that simply escaped and ran off, and they were like laughing and say, "Oh, that's nothing." What they didn't realize was that the goblins ran over to tell the IU's shock troops, meaning the orcish barbarians, that were the ones that actually slaughtered all the Farundi knights. And if they'd been smart and they looked around, they realized, well, very few dead humanoids or IU's troops. They were most Farundi knights because IU's actually won that battle. And then when they came in, they should have, but no one paid attention. They saw these goblins and started killing them. And then the orcs, the leader, he simply told his sergeant at arms that, "Oh, you take 5 guys and go over and see who these bastards are and kill them off." And what they didn't realize that, and they thought, oh, there were orcs coming, and they thought that orcs are like in the monster manual, meaning, oh, it's a 2-hit die, we kill them easily. But they didn't know that the master, they have one over nice, meaning these were IU's brutes, meaning these were like an 8th level barbarian with a couple of ranger levels, and this meaning the top guy was like a CR 13 monster, and the other ones were like CR 7 and 8. So the leader, he simply said, "Well, I'll go over and talk to them." So he walked over and then they started murdering homing. So he took the first one and just crushed his skull and chopped off the head of the second one, and the players were like, "What the fuck? He did like 62 damage," and I was like, "Oh, they have like 32." And then the orcs started laughing at them and simply say, "Well, should we take you prisoner, or do you run fast enough?" So we let the dogs go after them, and so the players need to think like we live in the world.
Yeah,
and for some
that's
players,
hard to get players to do sometimes.
Yes.
It's really hard.
So usually players, I think 1/3 of the players, they hate playing with my games because they don't follow the rules that way, and 1/3 are, well, it's another way of playing and it can be fun, and 1/3 like, "Oh, we love to play this style." So now I've learned over the years that I always inform my players, this is how I run my games, and so it's different. So yeah,
you get into those situations with players where there's the different philosophies that me and Jeff have gone over on the wisdom check about. Is it a player's world? Is it the DM's world? How do you balance that out? Do you give them enough rope to hang themselves with, or do you just let them off the leash and let them run wherever? And so and they get back to Thunderbase's question. It's like a side quest. Well, there is no side quest if you don't have a main quest. Everything
is a quest. They can go in any direction and just they exist in the world, and
Right, and if you're used to playing with modules, if you're used to playing in those modules where there is a storyline, then I can see where you might think it's like they're side questing the whole time, but it's not. That is the main course.
Something shows up, meaning if it looks like evil, then or humanoid, it's there to be killed. And in my campaign, that's not necessarily true, so to speak. So they're there because they and sometimes they laugh at you, and sometimes they kill you and run after. But on the other hand, you can be really superior to the enemy too if you're smart, so to speak. So so
this is fascinating because we've talked about this a few times, with our gaming group, just kind of in the background. Like we have some styles that have kind of developed over time, where we've kind of gone away from the simulationist elements. And so like we tend not to do a lot of the day-to-day minutia, like the encumbrance rules or navigating overland travel, that kind of stuff. And random encounters, we don't have those. So like there's a lot of these things that have kind of gone out, I think, because of time constraints. Like we get to play like once a month, So it is an interesting thing though, because I remember when we were getting started, early on, there were things about that style that were appealing for sure. Like I could see that being a really interesting game to play, like a different feel, because it kind of strays in a different way from that. I guess you'd say like high fantasy, where the players are like Billy Badass, roaming out there. They're gonna like change the world, kind of thing. You have like the world is a place where you just happen to exist in, and good luck, make your story. You know? And that's a fascinating story to me because the focus is so different. The things that matter, the equipment that matters, dealing with, locals and, finding the guides and stuff that becomes really important, where in some other games, maybe it's not. Like, what are the types of stories that you're able to tell in the simulation style that you think you don't tell in
political struggles and stuff, meaning the players are part of historic events, meaning they are part of winning a battle, losing a battle. They're part of a siege. They be in a city, they're under siege, and they have to be part of defending it, or they have to decide, are we going to fight with these guys defending the city, or are we going to hide somewhere, wait for it, or are we going to escape? And so they get part of shaping the world when you play in adventure paths and stuff. And I love that. So it's interesting when I'm a player, I'm perfectly happy playing the adventure paths and stuff. So, but when I'm running games, then I want to run the more simulation style. And so you are kind of, you're part of shaping the big things, meaning if you run an adventure path, the setting is more like something that just an esoteric flavor to the actual story.
Right.
But
setting the mood.
Yeah, exactly. But when you run my type of games, you're actually part of tipping the balance in a lot of different things. And you can start instigating things. We have players who realize that how the hell do we get to this evil bastard? We go from village to village and start a revolution and an uprising. And you can kind of, when you get, so meaning bards and stuff like that. You had a bard and a sorcerer and who was good with illusions and stuff. They can go around and stirring up trouble, not by killing things, but getting the farmers to and you point out all the horrible things that the tax collectors do. So you basically, when they followed the tax collector, and every time afterwards they kind of told the villagers all the horrors and whatever about it, and we had great fun. So that was kind of so for me, my games are highly political, and they can also be kind of warlike, militaristic if they want to, or they can be very kind of they can go into the underworld or become part of the mobsters, so they can be part of a resistance movement, and all these kind of opening. And I let my players simply exist and kind of go into whatever role they want, so to speak, and start a business, or they can start a thieves guild, or they can start saying that, well, I want to be noble, I want to be part of running this country, and then they can play to do it. Or they can say, well, there's monsters around in the world, we go out and hunt and kill these things. And that's the other thing. How do a fantasy world actually function? Meaning, how does the economy function when there's like undeads and dragons and stuff? So I'm so interested in politics and how the real world works. So I want to have a fantasy world that works from its own permission, on its own premises, so to speak. And I come up with a lot of interesting things, meaning, why do dragons hoard treasure? And stuff. So I came up with rules that actually facilitate that. So that's why I'm going to post that on my website. So that's coming in a day or two.
Freaking cool. You know, this is probably going to be a dead end here, but how does one get into one of your games?
I'm
asking for a friend.
Yeah. One of the sure ways will be to be one of my patrons, because I'm going to start an online campaign next year, and the first one I will reach out to are my patrons. To simply say my top patrons will have the first chance to get in on my games. So yeah, that's one sure way. The other one is to move to where I live in Southern California, somewhere close here, because I want to have Greyhawk gamers around here, because I want to run a game at a game store around a table too. So I plan to have 2 campaigns next year, to have one online game and then have one around the table. So yeah. But I live in between LA and San Diego, so there's like 15 million people living within an hour and a half. So there should be possible to get 5 gamers to play with me. So we'll see.
One would think.
Yep.
Oh man, it's very interesting, because this is something we've learned over time, is that DMs develop a style and flavor. It's kind of distillation of the group, like what works best for that particular group if you've been playing for a long time. And I love RDM to death. I love his style of games. It's a very beautiful thing. There's a lot of creativity there. It's just a good flow. But there are other elements that what you're describing that also really appeal to me that aren't part of that. And so it's really fascinating when you kind of go out of your table.
Yeah.
Kind of glance in at somebody else's, and it's like, holy shit, this game could be very different.
And that's what experience. Yeah. And that's one of the beauties with role-playing games, and even a single game like D&D, you can play it in so many different ways that are equally interesting, because I played adventure paths and old classics that are been run fantastically by DMs that are way better DMs than I am. But I also know that some of my players we've had fantastic sessions too that is really, really interesting. So and I like to play in. I don't think I would be a perfect player for my own games. So I have one experience when I run games, and I probably want to have a slightly other one when I'm playing. So I'm so super happy and stoked when players actually like my games. So yeah. So that's
interesting, that people run games that are different than what they would want to play.
Yeah.
Like what do you think is the underlying element there?
It's probably because when I run games, I want to I experience them completely different as a player, so to speak. Because a lot of DMs, they simply run games because, okay, I run some games so I can play other games. But for me, running a game is a completely different mindset, so to speak. It's then you're part entertainer. That's half the thing, is to entertain and inspire the gamers, and you get that energy from people staring at you, and you can talk to them for hours, and you can kind of spellbind them with presenting the story, so to speak. That's half of it. The other half is to feel smart, meaning you feel like I'm on the top of things, and you try to figure out what's in the mind of a dragon or a lich or a vampire and or a thieves guild. How does a thief guild work? Meaning a city run by thieves. How the hell does that work? And then I try to figure out that. Yeah, and it makes me smarter. So I love that. That's the other thing. It makes me more social, and it makes me more intelligent than I would otherwise be. And that, I think, is very important for me to run. And I encourage everyone who are interested in role-playing games to run games, because it makes you so good at organizing things, to talk in front of a group, to overcome a lot of kind of things, the issues you have with yourself and your surroundings. So it's a great training school for almost anything you do in life.
Oh, 100%. And that's we did an early episode about styles of game world building. Whether you're a very serious planner, everything is detailed out, everything ahead of time, you go into the game and this is what's going to happen tonight. Or are you the type that flies by the seat of your pants and then backfills?
Go on. Oh, I was going to say, for me, I detail the participants, meaning the terrain, the NPCs, who lives in the area, and how it works. That is detailed like that, but I have no idea what's going to happen.
Exactly.
No clue on story or whatever. So I let the players loose, and I let all the other ones loose, and I'll see what happens.
See, that's more the style I run.
I usually have a little more of an idea of what I think is going to happen. But I find a lot of times, like, maybe not so much with this group here at T2KB when I play with them, like, they're pretty good about instigating things. Like, I don't have to give them a whole lot of rope before they'll do something. But like with a lot of groups, I find
usually hang ourselves,
I have to throw those catalysts in there to keep things moving.
Yep.
Because otherwise they'll sit there like waiting. Yep. Like, because some people are so used to the adventure paths, the modules. They're so used to having that, basically being told when their lunch, dinner, and supper is going to be, right? Like they're not used to figuring that out on their own. So you have to kind of feed them a bit more, I think. But some of it is just a matter of what the player styles are and your style as a DM and finding the right people. And and
a lot of things is that I totally agree that you have to. A lot of players are used to sit there and wait for the cues, and that's when I try to invent these kind of cool cues that are so subtle and hidden that they don't realize that you need to subconsciously lead them to something. That's when I think most players are most happy, so to speak. And one thing would be like there was a bard coming once every week to the village, and he tells stories and so on and so forth. And you can kind of introduce rumors and stuff like that. You have omens, bad weather in the background, and all of a sudden there's fire and lightning in the clouds and so on. And then bard goes, "Hey, there's 2 dragons that are fighting out there and stuff, and they will come and take the village next week, and the neighboring village have been pillaged and so on and so forth." So you can kind of either scare the players to run away, or you can get them in the action, so to speak. And a lot of that is true, some of it is not true, and so it's kind of it's
very nice because it allows you to create a circumstance in which the environment, the setting is a character.
Yeah.
And much like when you develop a character with a good backstory, there's a point where you're writing the character, and then there's suddenly a point where the character is telling you who they are.
Yep.
And I think that's the same thing with world building. I think there's a point in this where you develop your factions, you develop your areas, and you let your players loose, and you suddenly look around and you go, wow, what is going to happen next? Well, I need to look around the corner before my players get there.
Yep.
Oh, they're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. Well, what would that do? Well, that means this other guy's got to do this. Okay, well, you know, and then suddenly you have this weird story unfolding in front of you. And that's my favorite type of DMing style to do personally. Like, I don't know if it's a game I would want to play necessarily, but like when I put together games, few and far between as they are, that seems to be the way I like to run it. You know, I go in there because it feels like being a player a little bit. You get that opportunity to also participate in the wonder and the exploration of your own game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times, like what I find is my players will react to something in ways I didn't expect. So I roll with it at the time because you don't have a choice, right? You're rolling with it. You roll with it, and then when you're done, I don't know how much time you always have before you play that game session again. For me, it's like 2 weeks. I spend a lot of time during those 2 weeks, especially now that we stream. I go back and I watch them, and I'm like, okay, so these are the things they're picking up on. These are the things, and this is where they decided they're going with this. Here's what I thought it was going to be. Now I've got to reroute. I got to refigure what's going on here, you know. And I think if you got enough time, you spend a fair amount of time as a DM just reevaluating what you thought was going to be your story versus what the players are suddenly turning your story into. And I think as a DM, you have to be okay with that process because that's what the storytelling process is. Otherwise, like we always say, just go write a book. You don't need players. Just go write a book.
Exactly. Yep.
We have another question from Thunder Bay. Very active chatter. I love these types of chatters.
Thanks for coming in, Thunder Bay.
Yeah, so our favorite types of chatters are the ones that ask questions. But the question that Thunder Bay asked is, Anna, what is your favorite type of player?
I have two favorite types of players, and that's something I thought of. I'd never realized the first two just happy running games, and but once I've been running games a long time, I started actually analyzing to see if I can get players to be better players and have more fun. And for me, it's two type of players. One that is a necessity. You should have, every game table should have a new player, someone who's never played the game before, where things are, you see their eyes just open. Can I do this? And you get like, oh, I get this. And then the eyes open when they see some monster or something. Just a skeleton comes up from the basement, or there's a large spider somewhere, and they get like, oh, they see the tracks, and then they get like, it's all a mystery to them, and the world opens, and I want a player who played 2 or 3 sessions, starting to know the game and starting to see the potential. That is one of the dream players, and everyone, you should always try to recruit new players, and that's one of my absolute favorite players. The other one is the other end of the spectrum, a player that has played so long that, because most of us, at least me, and I think I'm fairly typical, in the beginning everything is a mystery, and then you kind of, oh, it's awesome, and then after a while you start, I want to play the meanest, most badass, whatever my favorite is, meaning I want to have maxed out everything, and I want to have +5 everything. And you go through that Monty hole, and you just try to be the best ever, and so on. And then you get to the phase, you've done all that. You've been the best fighter, you've been the best ranger. Then you're starting to, I want to have a quirky, kind of cool character that wants to interact with things. And I want the game group to have more fun, and the player who can be supportive, who knows the game well, and simply want everybody to have a good time. Those are my two favorite type of players. The one that knows it all and done that and gone past that and knows the game so well that he's keen on the evening should be as much fun as possible, so to speak, for him and for everybody around the table. And the new player that everything is kind of wow, amazing. Those two are my favorite types of
having
players.
The bookends. It's so good.
Yeah.
So one person just popped in the chat here, DL Pancake. That's the artist David Lee Pancake, my dad.
Oh, and, awesome. Hi.
Yeah. So he is in, and just so you guys know, if you go to his online store, Art by David Lee Pancake, we now have a promo code that you can use for discounts.
Promo code.
So if you type in TT2KP Dragon, you'll get a 5% discount on all of his products.
And they are awesome.
And that 5% can be a hefty amount, because I have seen the work he does, and some of that stuff is amazing. Like it is good stuff. So
I love the dragons that come out of the vent.
Oh, the vent dragons.
Those are my absolute favorites. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a vent right. You can't see it because of where my camera is, but I have a vent up here at the top of right behind my computer. From where I rerouted the ductwork here in the man cave, and I still want to get a vent dragon.
Oh yeah, you should replace that with vent dragons. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'll have to make that happen someday.
Yeah, so if you get a chance, go check that out. The promo code's there, and that's pretty big time. It's interesting. Those types of characters you're talking about are just. I think those are pretty fascinating, because if you have a group that you've been with for a long time, the same group, you understand each other really well. You know how each player is going to play. You know what roles are going to naturally kind of fall into, that kind of stuff. And there is some beautiful things that comes out of that. Like there's camaraderie, there's, just satisfaction in that. But when you add that new player in, you suddenly get really unique behavior. And you get things that cause all the other players to have to adapt and change and react and be like, oh yeah, that was really interesting when those things happen the first time.
He uses the word unique. What you get is actual real reactions.
Yeah.
And not the player reaction to things. Like you get players that'll do things that maybe are considered not the smartest thing because they don't have all that experience of, which is
awesome. And I also love players that, like, really experienced players who start looking at the stats, meaning if your character has Intel 11, then means that the character isn't the brightest tool in the shed, meaning the character should make mistakes and not be that. So trying to, or you play someone whose wisdom is not, a fighter whose wisdom is not that good, so to speak, or something. So I love when they don't try to, it's not a game about winning and outsmarting everything. You have better numbers. It's playing the character. And that's the key. So that's what I try. And my playing style when I'm a player, I want to be the supportive character. I want to be I play the ranger or the bard or someone. I want to be the supporter. I don't like to be the character whose story revolves around me or anything. I love to be the ranger or the rogue maybe, or the bard or someone kind of a little bit all around.
Yeah, it's a cool role because I found I'm playing in a game where I've got I'm in basically a new player game. So like I'm the experienced player, and then the DM is one of our players, Tim, who plays Fulcrum in our game, and the rest of the group is more or less brand new to Dungeons and Dragons or role playing in general. And so like I made a character who's like really grandiose and ridiculous, and he's pretty potent as just kind of like the guy that's there to like make sure everything goes well, but I'm playing him in such a way that he can't be the front man, even though he's charismatic, because he's a giant douche and he's really full of himself. And, he just says arrogant stuff.
He's probably one of my characters.
Yeah, very much so. He's like a cross between Gaston and like, and any of my from Stargate, so it's kind of like that. But the nice thing is I could step in if the players get stuck. But the character is designed in a way that it's more or less just let them do their thing and then react to it, and let them have fun making, choices, making mistakes. I could fix some of the mistakes as they happen, but let them do that because it's their game, And I love watching that. It's a good way to kind of nurture people and bring them into the hobby. And I think it's really important if you are that player that you described that you like having at the table that's kind of gone through it. You've gone through the different stages of gaming, so to speak. You've been out the other end, and now you have this rounded portfolio that the next step is to go back and bring somebody up, share that with somebody else, let them experience the game and kind of buttress their experience.
Yeah.
Just finished up a 5e game. Well, one more session at a 5e game at a game shop last night, and I have a brand new player in that group, and it's been amazing watching him go through the process of, they're like level 5, just seeing how he's picking things as he levels up and the decision making process he has versus the other players who've been playing for 20 years. Like, he may have lost a limb for it last night, but he'll forgive me later. I'm sure.
Awesome.
We got another Thunder Bay question here.
Man, Thunder Bay rolling in with the questions tonight. Thank you, Thunder Bay.
Fantastic. Just keep them rolling. So have you had any nightmare tables?
Yes, yeah. I've had some bad experience. I had they decided to want to play an evil campaign when they played evil
No.
characters, and we had a great time from the beginning, but after a while it kind of degenerated, and we had two friends who had characters that started fighting each other and stuff. So that's one of the if you want to play, and we've had some good sessions when they played evil characters and gone on the evil side, but that requires really experienced players.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. You can't have
they said that in the books.
Experienced players and experienced DM.
Exactly. If you have experienced players who can play the characters without realizing that this is not personal, it's not about my character surviving, killing someone else's. You have to take all the competitiveness out of the game. Then evil going off the rails campaign can work, but it doesn't work on new players, I think, and it certainly don't on the players that are mid-scale that want to win the game and be as good as possible. That because all of a sudden it's a competitive. It's like chess and something.
Our group, I think, crosses hurdles with World of Darkness.
Yeah,
when we got into World of Darkness games where you're forced to play like vampires, werewolves that were not good people necessarily. Like I think we had to cross a lot of those hurdles then because
we navigated it eventually, but we had our
not at first, but it did take a while.
Start. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why in those old books. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off there.
No, it's okay. I was to say then you have the players that you are kind of. Sometimes I've been too harsh on them, so to speak. I've run at a game store, and I had one player who played with my Greyhawk campaign, and he's like, "Oh, we want to play some other games," and he kind of told 4 friends to come and play it, and we started playing, and I took them straight into the action, and they were Pathfinder players, so they were used to everything was level appropriate, and we played 2 sessions, and this is awesome, this is so much fun, and then they came in, and all of a sudden they were going through a village, and they were waiting and were thinking, should we stay here overnight? So they were like, or should we go this way or should we go that way? Because there was no real signs. And all of a sudden they see this, there were thunder clouds, and there's kind of an ominous dark thing, and something happens south of the village, and they see birds coming flying left and right and screaming, and there was some deer fleeing for its life, and then the cat ran ahead, and they were like, oh, something is coming, and they saw there's something riding on the road coming, and we need to stop it. So they put like a rope across the road, and what they didn't realize, it was a Death Knight, one of the major NPCs. He was simply going past the village for some reason. He was going there. He was going to some important business, and the player characters were like 4th level or something, so or 3rd or something. So they were like, "Oh, we're going to stop him." So I rolled, and his Death Knight, the undead horse, tripped, but he of course made his save. So he stood up, and the horse fell, and so Lord Sephrin, is Duke Sephrin was his name, and he was a major, really powerful lord, so to speak, and Death Knight. So he looked around and saw one of the characters coming running to murder him. So he took him and punched him, and he literally killed him on the spot. And then the other, they were like the 5 characters, so they were like, 3 of them like, we're going to run and do it. So they like ran up, and so he was like, damn, this is getting nasty. So he used this Eldritch Blast and killed a couple of them and chopped off the head. And there was like, and then there was one guy who was sitting there, and he said, "You go and tell the rest of the village to go fuck off, because I need to get away from here." And then he rode off, and they didn't like me at all. So as a so that was tough. So, but it was I gave them all the ominous signs in the world, and he didn't attack them right away. He gave them a chance, but they had to kill him because I thought he is so many XPs that they need to kill him. So
you're pulling no punches.
It's interesting because like I play a lot of MMO, like online games, and you think that that's like a completely abstract foreign concept, but you could be in a field killing the same type of mob over and over, and then there's one of them that's slightly different colored, and it's got stars next to its name or something. It's like 500 levels higher, and you don't realize it, right? Like it's like the boss just standing there in the field. Like you have to think. You can't just go around just hitting everything. Like you gotta think about it. And D&D can work the same way. Like just because it's there doesn't mean you want to mess with it. And and a lot of some of your better stories, the heroes will encounter something really nasty long before they can deal with it. And then they come back later and they find Lord Sephrin, and they deal with them when they're proper level. But you have to introduce those things early, and there's it's tough for players sometimes to understand they can't win right now. They got to win later.
Well, it's very clear that you don't have a problem just outright just running over a player character. Now, is that a result of the fact that it's a simulation game and that's what should happen? Or is that I guess that is the question I have.
It's very much like it's a harsh world. I see it as medieval world with monsters, meaning people are generally they need to be tougher. Most inhabitants need to be tougher in the world than they were in the medieval times. But on the other hand, it is probably tough, meaning that I would expect in Greyhawk, the average lifespan in most countries are probably not more than 30, 35 if you're lucky. But then there's the exception, meaning you have the really good ones, meaning they have the equivalent of perfect health care, meaning they have you have temples with clerics that will heal almost anything. They regenerate bones and hands or whatever, and they have really powerful. So there's some good areas that are fantastic, but on the other hand, they require that you live by the tenets and adhere to it and pay your taxes and stand up and learn to fight with the knightly order, or you go and pray in the temple and stuff like that. And if you don't like that, then they will persecute you, throw you out of the realm, or kill you outright, or feed you to whatever. So it's a tough, harsh world. But I think that's also, look at fantasy movies or whatever. It's not the dull everyday world. It is the tough world that requires the bit extra. That's what we want to have. We need to tune up the level of violence, the drastic. It should be a bit more black and white than the regular world. And I think it's also part of I would say psychotherapy, meaning they can actually learn things and go out and make something right. They can join a rebellion and kill the evil bastards, throw them out of the whatever, and get like, we won, and so on. So those are the moments too in campaigns like that. And I think in role playing in general, it's a way to kind of, you can't go out and do that in the real world. If you don't like politics or how things are run, it's hard. It takes years of political struggle if you fix it. But in the game world, you can grab a sword and a spell book and go out and kill the bastards, so to speak. And that makes you feel good. And I think that's the ultimate goal in the campaign, is to make the players feel good. Afterwards, they feel like we were part of changing the world for the better, so to speak.
Right. Now, do you find that your style lends a little more lower fantasy or higher fantasy? Like, you got clerics who can heal about anything. Do you like to go that route after you've killed them with the Death Knight on the road? Does some Obi-Wan Kenobi cleric come by and heal them back up? It's like, what were you idiots thinking? Like,
depends where they are, so to speak. If that Duke Sephrin was running through the most good-hearted place on the planet, oh yes, they will help everyone. But it also meaning you get, when you start, you gain friends. And you gain enemies, meaning if you fight for the good guys, that means that they will be there. Meaning if you join a knightly order and help the good church with the clerics or whatever, they will do anything to keep you alive if you fight for them. But that also means that if you wear that uniform, a lot of people will go and want to kill you simply because you wear that. You have that shield with that Knights of the Holy Shielding, means you get enemies everywhere. But on the other hand, that also means that you get a lot of friends. Meaning, pick the right enemies is good in my campaign, because if your enemies with the biggest baddies, that means that you get friends to help you simply because you dare to stand up. So that's really interesting. Cool. Yeah,
I really like that idea that, because it's very often the cause for the murder hobo characters is that there aren't consequences to the world you live in. Like, the environment you're in is just a place to show up, do your nonsense, and then just get back on the road and disappear. Never see that place again. And when the world is living and you have groups of people that are interacting with, that there are factions, that there's relational activities that are going to impact your future play, it really matters. You don't want to shit in your neighborhood,
Exactly. Meaning, there's, in my campaigns, there's plenty of chance for murdering hoboing. It's just that it needs to be done. You have to find the right direction to do it, so to speak. You have to find someone to fight for and with and for some cause. And there's plenty of there's so much evil and horrors and whatever in my world of Greyhawk that you can go out and kill forever if you want to. But if you just go out and do it by yourself, you will not last long. So that's the you have to fight someone for you and with you and find the cost, so to speak, to do it. Which
now I'm
makes
curious because this is where I've always, Jeff makes some valid points about where murder hoboing might come from. I have always come from the mindset that the murder hobo originates purely on the idea that everything is walking XP bags, and that's how I get to next level.
Yep.
So do you use XP in your games? Do you track it?
Yeah, I track it, but the way I do it is that you simply get experience point from how dangerous the situation is. So I simply, if you lay in bed at home if you go to the goodest city or live in the temple where all the clerics are, you get like 1 XP a day because that doesn't give you much life experience. If you go down to the abyss, you will get 1,000 XP every day you stay alive. Because that's
so kind of milestone it. You're not, but I mean, but that's where your players, like when you have the Death Knight rolling down the road,
then
they just see it as big ball of XP that has to be defeated. Exactly. They're going to go out there and try to kill it because they think that's what they do to get the next level.
But I don't get the XP whether they defeat it or not. It's simply the more danger you face and stay alive, in the more dangerous situation in areas. If you're in one adventure, they went into the Gibbering Gate, one of IU's top security prisons. And was going through that, and then they get like 1,000 XP every day. So they level up after a couple of days in there. They level up automatically, and whether they just staying alive in there, and meaning that was so much. So all the danger they face, and simply the more critical, drastic, difficult situation they're in, the more XP they get. Whether they just surviving it, that's it, so to speak. So
yeah, it's we have a chatter in here. Lascivian, and they're saying that they use milestone leveling since their games are very heavy roleplay, and because they don't feel like the crunching of the numbers. I find that's a movement I find is happening. It's more and more frequently. I guess it's really what these abstract concepts of experience or hit points or whatever, what they represent. Yeah. You know, if they represent just fighting things, killing them, and getting experience to level up, okay, that's one thing. If it's dealing with surviving in a harsh world, that's another type of narrative kind of laid out by the rule system. Is it what did your character learn, like it was in the in kind of like the exalted kind of approach? That's another type of narrative. It's really interesting to see how the rules can impact the way players think about their characters and challenges they face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like I'm playing this Whitehander game that I'm going to be running this Thursday, and because every combat, one wrong swing can kill you. Like you have to think twice before you pull your weapon and then just rush on in there like everything's going to be okay. You know, it may not go okay. Like I don't care if you're a knight or a peasant. Like that peasant might kill you if his pitchfork hits just right. Like you're going to go down. So
and that's a perfect example, because I was thinking when I look at fantasy movies, when you see Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, whatever, you see all these awesome battles, and they have formations, and they have shield lines, and they help each other and so on. And when I looked at D&D combat, I never saw any of that. They were just running around and you were punching each other, and that was it. And also I noticed that if you have a 10th level fighter or CR 10 monster and a first level character, the first level character can't even hurt the 10th level monster. So I was like, there's something not right here. So I was thinking, how do I get the rules to get combat to look more like the fantasy movies? So what I did was that flanking stacks. Flanking normally in most D&D editions, like this is 3.5 Pathfinder, but for most of my career, that was you got like a +2 to hit if you were on the opposing sides of them. So I simply say that if you are 3 characters, you don't need to be opposing. If you're 2 on your side hitting one enemy, you got +2 to hit and +2 damage. And then you simply, if you're 3, you got +3, and so on. That means that all of a sudden, you need to be in formation. You need to find the spot at the door, because if the enemy goes in, for instance, my players, when they hear a lot of goblins coming running in the tunnel, they get terrified because they hear lots of feet. Because and then you have spears and stuff from a distance. I mean, I usually cap it at +8 or so, because then it gets ridiculous. But usually about that, because that also ties in with the total defense. Because if you do total defense, so you only try to defend yourself, then you get like you get +8 to your armor class or something like that. It was 6 or 8 or something. So that means that you can go into total defense, but you can't really be useful. And that also means that you can overpower someone. You can a whole bunch of city guards can overpower almost anyone. And that means that all of a sudden, it means that you have to have friends, you have to plan your combat, and you can be effective even if you're a small force of not that high level, so to speak. A bunch of farmers with pitchforks becomes dangerous as hell if they're willing to sacrifice a few of them. They will win almost any battle. And then all of a sudden, combat started to be like in the movies. It started to get the feel from it. So I kept that rule.
And I found myself, as I've come along more and more, looking for other systems that do that, where I don't have to change those rules. Like, and there's so many systems out there that are heading towards that path more. I think that was one of the things that we did like a bit about like World of Darkness in the day, was that it seemed far more deadly than the abstract hit points of D&D. And I was just going to kind of also make kind of half comment that I think we lost some people with the idea of stacking flanks, because they're all like, wait, so you get to roll advantage again and again? Like, they don't understand. Like, they're so used to 5e where it's just you get the extra roll.
So in
there used to be hit and damage bonuses for flanking. So if you're confused, it's
well, Fifth that doesn't even technically have flanking rules.
No, technically you just get advantage or not advantage. But we have lots of people there.
That's an optional rule.
It is an optional rule.
Yeah,
I think
but I'm thinking about how to do that in 5e. But that was one of the benefits, I must say, in 5e, because in 5e the armor class and the to hit bonus don't accelerate. They don't inflate like crazy. That was one of the problems in 3.5, and PF1 kept it, so to speak. So and PF2 have the same problem from the beginning, but in the Game Mastery Guide, they have a rule I've heard in one of their previews when they talked about the book, that they actually, how you get rid of the level, you don't add levels to your rules. And I think that makes perfect sense, because you have you get better by going from untrained to trained and expertise and so on. And that should do it, so to speak. You don't need to add level to it, because then you have two systems in parallel and you just get inflated numbers that goes off the rails. So we'll see.
And that was always one of my problems.
They tell different stories.
Yeah, I always felt like with Pathfinder, it was just a constant inflating of the number.
So I kind of went the other way and simply say, well, then let them inflate them by numbers, so to speak. So and it worked. That worked really well. It got combat very interesting that way. You have a bunch
I would imagine.
The first time I encountered that, I had a friend that used to live actually when the place Jeff used to live. He lived like down a couple doors from him, ironically, and we were all playing these really high level like 9th characters in what was this effectively like first ed D&D, and like 300 goblins showed up, and we were like, oh, it's goblins. Like 9th level, like no problem, right? And then they all pulled out crossbows and fired poison darts. And the funny thing was if you get hit with enough poison darts, you're going to fail your poison save eventually. And then you go down, you go. It was all over. So they like wiped us in like no time. Like we killed like 50 of them, but it didn't matter. There were 300, and they had more than enough to take us down, even as little 4 hit point goblins. So you get shot with enough darts, you're going to go down.
Definitely. But another way to compensate for it, because I also felt that I wanted the game grittier, but not deadlier, so to speak. So I didn't want my characters to die more often. So what I did was that I let them have, because in almost all D&D editions, including Pathfinder, when you get to 0, you either fully function or you go unconscious, meaning you go to 0 and hit points, and then you're basically unconscious, and then you can't do anything. And I wanted people to be characters to be gradually battered into submission, so to speak, meaning you will lose it. So I realized that hit points they increase like crazy with levels, but constitution only increases slightly. So I realized that so when you have a monster or a character that goes to minus as many as they have constitution, that means that you just staggered, you just lose an action, so to speak, and you get minus on it. And then when you go from your, if let's say you have 10 constitution, from minus 10 0 to minus 10 hit points, you just staggered. That means that you can attack, or you can move. You can do both things. And so meaning you can run away, but you can do nothing else. And then you go from 10 to minus 20. That means that you kind of sicken. You can basically just try to hold yourself together, and you have to really concentrate to do anything useful, and use starting, and then from 20 to 30, then you start dying, so to speak. You gradually become unconscious. Cool. You have to roll. So that means that you become you don't die that easily, but so then things get scary, and you kind of so then you introduce that kind of panic on the battlefield after a while. So that means that it's damn hard, and you also have to go around making sure that the enemy is actually killed and not just laying around and can be healed afterwards.
We had a question coming in there from Lascivian, who was asking if you apply this to the enemies, and I think by your last statement you confirmed there that you do.
It depends on. I don't do it for regular. If they're fighting for 40 goblins, I skip it, so to speak. Sure. But all the important ones I do. And sometimes I just simulate it. I don't keep track of 40 enemies. What I do is that I just assume that they roughly have 15 hit points each, and then I just I'd simply say, okay, they will probably last 2 hits. So if they're somewhere in the range of 10 or whatever, I just that one just falls over. And then afterwards they have to go and check if he survived or not. So you don't have to the important thing is that you get the feel right for the combat. That's the important bit. Don't do all the math perfectly. Skip that bit. Just get the game is supposed to flow, and the combat is supposed to be iconic, interesting. And the other thing is that don't stop role playing just because you start combat. That is the key.
Preach.
Exactly. That is I think that's one of the key to keeping players engaged. A lot of DMs, what you do is that you role play and you talk about what the characters, and they haggle with the NPC, or they have a talk with the demon, or they do some spells trying to figure out what the god wants them to do, or whatever, something. And then all of a sudden they come to combat. Roll initiative, and all that goes out the door, and it's all math and so on. Try to roll into combat gradually, and then during combat there should be conversation. Someone is shouting, yelling something interesting down there. There are things happening outside of combat. There's a dragon flying past and he stares at you, and all these kind of things that happen during combat that is not actually part of rolling the dice. So the story of the world should continue while you have the combat. That's really, really important. So skip some of the math. Just keep an average count of how many hit points, and let the monsters last long enough to really be interesting, so to speak. That's key. So don't keep track of it minutia. Make it fun and engaging and entertaining, so to speak. That's part of it.
And I'll tell you, if you ever start streaming your games and you go back and you watch it, you'll realize when you're letting the math get in the way of telling a good story, and when people quit role playing during combat. Like, you can go back and look at it and be like, wow, that got really dull really quick.
And also hand out XP for good role playing.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning come up with a cool idea or do something awesome. 50 XP, 100 XP, just hand them out like candy that way, and have fun. That's the key bit, so to speak. Rough, tough, and gruesome and gritty, but with a smile, and players should be terrified and smile and have fun at the same time.
I love this. This is so good.
Thunder Bay here brings up an interesting word, and I'm going to ask him a question. Thunder Bay, with morale, did you play like second ed when there used to be morale scores for monsters? Because that is something that has gone by the wayside that you just don't see anymore. But there used to be morale scores that you would roll as a DM to decide if the ranks of the enemy broke, and they just all scattered. And goblins were really low. Other things had higher morale. Like, it is something that amazingly enough has gone by the wayside over the course of time.
And I think that's one of the most important things ever, is to how long will the enemy hold, so to speak, because they want to survive too. The monsters aren't there to be killed. They are creatures who want to live, and also that you have to play, meaning a smart dragon with 22 intelligence that has been around for 400 years. He's not going to give up easily, and he's not going to put himself in harm's way in a dumb way, so to speak. So,
are you suggesting they'll use those wings and just fly away if they don't feel like fighting that day?
And also they don't start by waiting on the ground to be killed. They come swooping in and snatch one of the players and lift him up a mile up in the air and just drop him. And then
suddenly you realize why you take Featherfall as a spell over Fireball. Suddenly that spell makes a lot more sense.
That's and also encounters with monsters like that, meaning dragons are nasty, difficult. I had one a black dragon. He was actually waiting because black dragons they love to be in water and swamp, and they pollute water and stuff. So the characters had actually the black dragon had a river next to where he lived, so he liked to hang out there. It was actually a she, but so she hung out there and waited, and the characters came in and realized this is a nice little place we can have our nightly camp and stuff. So they were sitting in and they realized what the hell going to happen here. So I was like, the dragon pollutes the water. So that was like some dead goat laying there in the water, and then it smells bad. And the carriers were like, okay, well we don't need to drink it. We can just ignore it, whatever. And then the dragon was kind of he blew some bubbles and stuff because he wanted to see if they were interested, and they were there might be something out there, and then the dragon's like, there's no fun. So he just waited, and then during the night and they came like, and then he started making noise down in the water to see, because he wanted some fun, so to speak. He wanted to kill something. That was he wanted to lure them in. And then they came down to see, and then bang, he attacked them from nowhere and dragged one of them down, and they were like, damn, what's happened? And then that was it. He wanted that fun thing, and he turned him to shreds and then swam away, and they never realized what it was. Yeah. So that you can kind of make it really nasty and memorable in some scary ways, so to speak. So and make variations of them. Don't have cookie cutter trolls. Have kind of one thing that we spawned in another when we talked in Legends and Lore show. We said that you can have teenage trolls. You can have young trolls that just want to go out and be murdering, hoboing ones that don't have any wits in the world, so to speak. That would be awesome fun to see, so to speak. And they can be a menace beyond anything. And because they can't die, so you can imagine what teenage trolls would be like, so to speak. So, yeah.
And there used to be like I said, back in some of the older editions, there were charts that help you force you into those situations. You'd roll a dragon, and it'd be like, oh, well, this is a young dragon.
Yeah. Oh,
this is an elderly dragon. Like, this is one that's past its prime. Like, and it gave you kind of those ideas. Like, you didn't know you were going to do it unless you use the charts that were in the book, and then all of a sudden you were stuck with this. Like, okay, well, now what do I do with it? But now it's like, I think they just put them all as separate monsters, and they make the DM pick. And so the DM always goes to the classic version without thinking about these other variants of it that they could have.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a strength of the style of game you're talking about. When you're thinking of a simulation game where everyone is an individual, all the locations are individual locations with a character to them. The world is a living, breathing place. Obviously, there are young and old versions of trolls. Mm-hmm. Obviously, every centaur is different. Like, that's a given. Whereas I think a lot of times when you're looking at a game, whether it's a module or a homebrew game, you flip over the monster manual and you go, oh, okay, that's what's CR appropriate. Let's go. And it just ends there.
Yeah, and I realized that in my version of Greyhawk, my campaign, that the really old dragons, most of them, they don't live in the Flannies because there's enough nasty adventures, whatever, that kills most dragons. So they actually, most of them respawn. They have the young ones somewhere else. So they move in because they need. And one of the things that I've done is that the reason that dragons hoard treasure is that in order to incubate their eggs, they need dragon bones. So they have two options. The old classic ways that dragons was that they actually went out and killed someone else, another dragon, and used the bones, because the bones was the essence that was nourishment because the dragons have to have some sort. They are so powerful that they have to have some sort of natural reason why they don't populate all over the place, so to speak. So they can only respawn a certain amount. So the classic way was simply you killed another dragon and do it. And the good dragons, they simply donated their bones, so to speak, when they died in order to have new baby dragons being made. But there was a workaround. Treasure could be used as a substitute for dragon bones. So you actually, dragons realize that, there's creatures that dig up gold and diamonds and stuff like that. If we hoard that, I could put my eggs in there and they will incubate. And so that became like, oh, we can pile up these things. So they built these mounds of treasure to use as nests, like birds build nests. And so male dragons build depending on the species, but some male dragons, they build these nests in order to impress for the females to come and lay eggs in their nest, so to speak. And in some other ways that the female builds it and the male have to impress. But I thought I looked at birds of prey that the females are the biggest ones, so to speak. So,
Right.
so they're the biggest, baddest ones, and they kind of build the nest, and then the males have to compete in order to be the ones to come there and be their mates. And so that means that dragons come to populated areas with humans and dwarfs and whatnot in order to accumulate treasure, because that's a shortcut to making baby dragons. And that's why they did it. And then when they get really old, they don't die from old age normally. They donate their bones. So they become, so like a red dragon that is really, really old and a great worm, he or she, that dragon, wants to make sure that they can provide a new set of offspring for themselves as their last gasp, so to speak. So what they do is that they present themselves to be killed. So they go around and find the other most brutal dragon around that is the most powerful one that can actually give their bones the best chance of the offspring, the best chance. So the male dragons that way, they go around finding the kind of the most awesome female dragon, and then that old dragon killed the old great worm, so to speak. And when you hear that roar, because that's like the biggest dragon orgasm, I hope we can use that word here, but biggest dragon orgasm in the world, so to speak. And if the characters hear that roar, that is like dragon frightful presence times 10, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So if you hear that, you have to make a saving throw. If you're within the frightful presence range of a dragon, you will terrify the dragons for life. There is no saving throw at all from it. But if you hear it from like a mile away, it's a DC so and so, depending on. So if you hear that, then you have a chance of being scared, because that roar is so terrifying that because the dragon, and then the dragon goes out with a bang, so to speak. So I try to invent things that make dragon function in the world the way they are described to do, so to speak. So the rules should support gameplay, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That is fascinating. I always just assumed they accumulated all that treasure because it just caused stupid mortals to come wandering in so they had food.
No, I just
By the time they're done, like, oh, look, breakfast just walked in.
Yeah. But I thought that eating adventures is probably not that good. And also, I was thinking, what do dragons eat? That was the other thing. And I realized that the good dragons, the chromatic dragons, are so advanced that they usually live off they can eat gold and diamonds and get sustenance from that. So they don't need to eat a lot of meat, whatever. But the more primitive the dragons are, like white dragons, they go out and hunt, so to speak. So they are closer to natural. So in my world, there's like these pure dragons, the chromatic dragons, the highest elevated dragons. They are not like creatures. They're more like humans. They're not part of nature anymore. They're cultural creatures that live in life and have kind of expanded beyond mere animals, so to speak. And then you have the metallic dragons, or the metallic are the good ones that are kind of past the natural.
Chromatic are the other.
Yeah, the chromatic, they are kind of still semi-animal, so to speak. They have advanced somewhat, but they are still more animalistic. And then you have a whole bunch of dragons that are normal animals, like wyverns, and you have sand dragons, and you have a whole bunch of others that are more like normal. They're normal animals. They go out and eat and do that. So dragons are starting to get past the ecosystem, so to speak. That means that they can screw up the whole world if you don't go after them. So
it's a really fascinating thing, and that's something I think DMs need to be open to. Is just looking at the tried and true and saying, you know what, it doesn't have to be this way. What's another narrative approach we can go with it?
Yeah.
I think like historically, like dragon stories, the hoarding was supposed to be reminiscent of greed. Mm-hmm. Like just being, Smaug. He's proud and he's hoarding this wealth that nobody else will ever get. And he's never going to spend.
Yeah.
That's just like a sign of evil. Like why does he need that? He doesn't need it. And so it's like symbolic. But I think what you're doing is just really interesting, because now there's you could see this happening around the world in history, and you're like, oh, this makes sense. I gotta steer clear
and I saw that, and like good dragons, they might do it another way, that they will do when they get old, they will go to a certain area and die and leave their bones there, and that's where the other good dragons go to build nests and nourish their young ones. And it's also an area, so it depends. So most good dragons, they don't nest and have their eggs and stuff in the flannies or in inhabited areas. They go to those areas, remote areas, where they defend them on groups, so to speak. So there are like many of them, so they defend against all the other ones. So they have large areas that are ruled by dragons that way. And so I have this valley where you have Tiamat and Bahamut. They have opposite mountains, and then you have like a no man's land in between, and then they kind of fighting it out over, and then they go out in the world to conquer treasure and areas and support and whatnot and build alliances. But they kind of an area that was run, and it's been run by millennia because they live so long, and so they have all these kind of. So I always want the world to kind of function, and then you have economy, meaning I was thinking inflation. If they slay a dragon that have all this treasure, that means that kingdom inflation will go up the gazoo because everyone is full of gold and stuff. So then you have all these kind of economic effects. And the other thing is, if a dragon moves in an area and starts killing things and grabbing treasure from everybody, that is like a threat. And then you have areas where you have countries and realms that you strike a bargain with the dragon. That's like having nukes. So I have realms that are like an elven realm. They have an alliance with a gold dragon, an old gold dragon, and so that's like having nukes, meaning they defend each other, and that's the ultimate defense. If you mess with my realm, we have a gold dragon. So screw you. So there's kind of
And then getting a dragon egg is then like some smaller country that shouldn't have whatever you like is like giving them nuclear power, right? Like now you got to go deal with now they get to sit at the table. They have a dragon.
And one of the reasons I wanted to figure out, why do good dragons strike these alliances, and I realized they can shapeshift into humanoid creatures, and so my rule is that they can shapeshift into, when they are hatchlings, the first creature they bond with, whether that is a dwarf or an elf or human, they become, if the first thing they bond with is an elf, that means that they will become an elf. They will get one person. They can't be any other person. They will be an elf. And they will, when they're hatchling, they're like a toddler. And then they become older as they advance in age, so to speak. So they live as long in human form or elven form. That means that if the dragons, if the dragon parent want their hatchling to take human shape, they have to go and find humans to interact with. So they kind of place their hatchling there deliberately, so the hatchling will get a human alter ego, so to speak.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Or elven or whatever. And the elves have been around the longest, so that's why they have most of these kind of, they think long term. So the dragons have a tendency of choosing them because humans are so fickle and stuff, so they kind of tend. But on the other hand, some dragons like copper and others, they are more kind of they go off on a whim more than silver or gold does.
Absolutely. And
this is side here. I was going to tip you in there, Jeff. Go ahead.
Our guest from last week, we had a project that was under kickstarting. They were doing the Islands of Sina Una, which was a wonderful addition to 5th edition content about Filipino folklore. And apparently they just hit their goal.
So they were at 96%.
Awesome. Congratulations.
They were at 96% when I got off work. I checked on it before I came home, and I saw they were getting close. So congratulations to them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So what I was about to say was back to where we were, is that what I've noticed is from some of your detailed like kind of conversations about things like how dragons breed and like how economies work and everything else, is that I think what you've really done is you've really hit on, in my opinion, the real big benefits to playing in the same game world for long periods of time, multiple campaigns. A lot of people build a campaign, they run through it, they trash it, they move on to a new one. But when you sit in the same world for so long and you think about the cause and effects of through generations or how these things work, you start to develop these other kinds of side systems that don't exist in the book. And the book does not cover any of that sort of stuff, but you have to start thinking about how these things work. You know,
And for me, it was filling in the blanks, meaning the story was written, so to speak. So I just have to, okay, what kind of rules mechanic will create these stories? So that's why I try to get the mechanics, because that's what the mechanics I need in order to kind of make the world move on, so to speak, and the players are in it. So I want the mechanics to facilitate and create these stories almost automatically, so to speak. That's the idea.
Well, and if you ever get tired of drawing maps, I think you could have a second career there and just creating side systems for some of these things that these games don't normally do. Yeah, Sounds like you figured a lot of it out over the course of some time there.
Well, I played for like almost 40 years now, it's almost 40 years to the day, I think. So yeah, so I've been. So that way, it's simply I want to have my fun games, and I want to have the rules that facilitate them, and also the subsystem. But I also understand that for some DMs, they have wonderful, awesome stories they want to tell, and also that it takes a lot of less prep and stuff to do it. So and I must say that there are definitely my way of running things is one way of doing it, and it's not the only way by far. There's probably 10 other ways that are equally good, if not some of them are probably way better than mine, but it depends on your mindset and what you want out of it, because it's like I probably spend 5 times more time prepping for a game than actually running it, so to speak. So for 1 hour at the game table, it's 5 hours of prep time. That's roughly but on the other hand, the prep time is fun. It's things that I do when I have nothing else to do. When I'm sitting in the airport, I can take notes and go, oh, that's kind of fun, an idea. And when I'm out running somewhere, I can like listen to music and come up, oh, that's cool. That should work this way. And then and you kind of come up with it. And when I visualize my world, like who lives there? And that's kind of really important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we see with this influx of new players coming into 5e and the boom is that, and maybe this is Critical Role inspired, is that you're seeing a lot of focus on those heavy narrative things now versus more of the simulation aspect. And we see that sometimes with the people in our chat too. They're like, well, get rid of any rule that gets in the way of story. Get rid of anything that gets in the way of this. Like, and it's interesting that 5e has kind of landed in that spot that they feel like that allows them to do that.
But I see that as good in a way. It's interesting because I remember back in the day when you had basic D&D and then you had AD&D, advanced D&D, and now I see with Pathfinder and 5e we're back to that again. I think D&D 5e is a perfect basic D&D. It's probably the best D&D version ever. But Pathfinder is probably the best advanced Dungeons and Dragons that ever been, so to speak. So actually, I think they complement each other, and they also direct themselves towards slightly different player groups. So I think that both of them are perfectly viable games for slightly different play styles, and they're both fantastic fun to play in. So yeah.
We just had the best comment in chat. I have to say it on stream. Lasavia just says the worst unfair exception that Critical Role has given him is that 9 people can get together regularly for a game. That is about the most true statement I think that has been said in our chat in quite some time. So thank you, Lasavia, for that one.
Having an audience and getting an income helps.
That does a lot for you. Having a whole set, people paid to be there, that probably does help a little bit.
It's fascinating. Like I find that this it comes up so often in our conversations that people are saying, "Oh, the rules get in the way of the story" or whatever. But to me, maybe I'm a specific type of player, but I find that rules inform the story a lot of times. Like the rule system you have is the physics of the world. The types of stories that occur oftentimes are because of the rules. And I find it funny that people find that restrictive, as opposed to a way of injecting more content into their game.
Now, Jeff, we don't need to rehash this argument again today, do we? We've only got about 5 minutes left. Come on, Jeff.
But I think there's an interesting correlation with the computer games that way, because in computer games, the rules are just in the background. You don't know, and it's kind of interesting. You go back and you see MMOs, and then you got all the numbers, meaning you can see the numbers on top. You can see the numbers. This is a plus whatever sword, and it was like a golf bag. You had 1 plus silver, this 1 plus titanium, whatever, or something. So you had like, and it was very crunchy. And now there are a lot of these games, which I think it's actually good because the rules are scaffolding. They're there to facilitate the game. They're not there to I don't like games where you're supposed to win and lose. It's about having fun. But so computer games, the rules are just there. No one really knows what the rules in World of Warcraft are, more than a few super nerdy players. Most players who play World of Warcraft, they just punch the buttons and run around and have fun punching things. And then, okay, now I can do it a little bit faster so I keep this sword. It feels a little bit better. The graphics are cooler, or the enemies die a little bit faster. But you don't really know why that is, because the math behind it is something that's just happening in the computer, and you don't really know. And you could basically run a tabletop game that way, meaning just roll the die and the DM just tells what things happen. You don't know the rules. That's possible, but I don't think that will be fun. You need to have a little bit more kind of what to play your characters with, so to speak.
Yeah, as an MMO player, like, it's interesting because, like, the first thing a lot of the people in my guild do is we create a combat log. So that we can get all the data, so that after a combat, after anything else, we go back and the battle may take 20 minutes, but then we'll spend the next half hour just reading the combat logs. Like, what the heck happened here? Like, okay, if I do this and this, then that works. Like, it's amazing the amount of time you can spend just breaking those things down, when you're done. Like, because it is there, but you don't think about it until you need to think about it to get over an achievement, to get over a hurdle. And then all of a sudden you have to go to those logs and start seeing what happened and why things went wrong. And
that's what in the tabletop game world, then Pathfinder is for you. If you want to analyze and you want to have the options and the choice and all that, then Pathfinder is for you. But if you're the one playing the MMO and you just, this sword looks cool, I go out and I simply bang enemies and have fun, and the graphics looks cool, but you don't analyze anything and you don't really care about that much about mechanics, then you're more of a D&D 5e player, I think, when it comes to the tabletop equivalent.
Yeah, there is definitely, I don't want to say a line drawn there. I think there's a lot of people who can straddle into both. Like, but
me too.
And for me, I say all the time, like, it's a matter of what story I want to tell.
Yeah.
Like, my game I'm running on Thursday, I couldn't tell that story with 5e or Pathfinder. Like, it is, Zweihander is the right system to run for that kind of story. And the system inspires that story, and they work together that way. There's other games like my 5e game that I ran yesterday. I couldn't tell that was Zweihander. I couldn't tell it with Pathfinder. It has to be a 5e game.
And it's like,
and it's just how it is. Like, it's just how those things work. So
I played Fate for a couple of conventions, and actually that was awesome fun. It was like hardly no crunch whatsoever. It was just scenes, and you have to come up with negative things that you might screw up that gives you plus, and it was awesome fun. You didn't have levels, you didn't have hit points, and there was nothing of this D&D stuff that was around. And actually I was thinking, is this something that could be cool to run in fantasy? I've only run modern scenarios in Fate, so I don't know how Fate will work in fantasy, but it seemed like a really cool way of, if you want to tell stories and stuff, a Fate system might be a rule system for you. So
we had a question from our own sound guy here. He wants to know if you're going to be at Gen Con 2020 and if you're going to do another seminar.
Yes, I will be one way or the other. I will be at Gen Con, but my next, I will go to PAX. I will have unfortunately don't have any seminars, but in GaryCon next year, I will have a seminar, a 2-hour seminar talking about my maps.
And GaryCon's in March, correct?
Yes.
Usually around March. So
my birthday weekend.
I mean, we think about March being like a long ways away, but it's December now. Like, it's coming soon. Exactly. So like, if you're making plans for GaryCon, or if you want to go there and see it, like, start finding your tickets now. Like, get those things hammered down. Like,
so there's 40 seats, and then hopefully I will have a seminar at Gen Con as well. I had a seminar at Gen Con last year, and it was awesome. I had 80 seats, and I think it was like 72 people there for 2 hours.
Awesome. Wow!
Nice. So I showed a lot of cool new map stuff and stuff. So, and time to get into the nitty-gritty bits, technical. We haven't talked much about maps, so we talked so much dragons.
Well, these interviews, we never know where they're going to end. We only know where, like a lot of game sessions, we know where they're going to start. We have no idea where they're going to end. Like, but I mean, this is, in my opinion, been more interesting than maybe hearing about how you decide where an island's going to go out there. Up and like, I love hearing about the philosophy like things you like to do. Like, there's
for sure. But for those in the audience who want to find more about your maps, where do they need to go?
They can go to annabmeyer.com. That's my website that has mostly all my Greyhawk stuff. You can download it there. You can read blog posts and stuff. And then you also have patreon.com/AnnaBMeyer, where you can sign. If you want me to make more Greyhawk maps and support me from doing that, then you can find that. And also Kobold Press has a bunch of Midgard products that have my maps in them. And then there's a bunch of stuff from other game publishers too that have some maps here and there that are mine. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So we did have another last question coming in here from Thunder Bay. It says, are you playing with Lord, is it Gasumba? Am I saying that right, at PAX?
Oh, yeah. I will not play with him, but I will play with him in his basement. And this sounds like crooked. You fly around the country to be in someone else's basement. So it's Jay Scott. But everyone who watched Lord Gasumba channel, Jay Scott has one. If we all dream about having cool game rooms, he is one of the coolest on the planet. He has a whole basement full of crafted terrain, thousands of miniatures, gaming products from 40 years of gaming and all that stuff, so to speak. And he runs a Twitch channel that he runs a game every Thursday, and then he has a gaming show. And we have a show, Legends and Lore. It's called Me and Mike Bridges and Jay Scott, where we talk about the setting of Greyhawk every week or two. So cool. Yeah, so we have that, and so now I actually go to Jay's house and play and be in his basement and be part at sitting around the table, and that's one of these dreams when they have he's one of these awesome DMs who run a campaign for 40 years, have all the gaming glory of cool equipment you can imagine, so to speak. He has it all. Cool. He has miniatures, terrain, a huge gaming table, and all that stuff. So yeah.
It's a lot to look forward to in life, amassing the stuff, having the stories to tell, things to share, see gaming groups do what they do best. It's a great time to be a gamer. Loving it.
Yep.
And we're kind of at the last few minutes here, so I guess that was a good plug for you there. One of the things we can definitely find on that is just incredibly high resolution maps. We were kind of poking around at them earlier, and you can zoom and zoom and zoom for days, and there's just detail everywhere. And I highly encourage you guys to check it out. Definitely go show her support, give her some, patron dollars, make her, able to do more of this stuff. And it's a wonderful thing. I love seeing this community growing and seeing people that have been coming on the show, finding great success along the way. And sharing what's made them successful to other people here that are trying to come up and make their own, mark on the world. And so I guess with that, Dustin, where can we find you kind of pushing out content?
Oh, man. Well, you'll find me here every Monday, 10 p.m. on the Wisdom Check, where me and Jeff bring on another guest. Oh, man, that was where I was supposed to know who we have next week, and I forgot. Let me take a look. Total fail right there. We're professionals around here.
I like to spring things on Dustin, right?
Yes, next week it's Hope Lavelle.
That's right. So motion cap and just lots of really interesting gaming conversations to be had there. So we're going to be checking out all kinds of different dynamics that go into more of the things that are tangentially related to the gaming world. So, the movies, stunts, martial arts, all kinds of cool stuff in there. So that'll be fun.
That'll be a cool conversation we're going to have next week with Hope. Before you get to next week, because I like to try to do things in order occasionally, this Wednesday, you won't find me, but you may find Jeff and Clint and a few of the guys playing some Vermintide.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
We're doing that on Wednesday nights. I want to say the start time is 9 p.m. It's going to be 8, but it seems to be like 9 seems to be when things are happening. Is that
probably
closer?
9?
Okay, we'll say 9 for now. So if you haven't checked out Vermintide, it is a computer game. They get together in a group of 3 or 4, and if you're here in the Twitch chat, you can vote on things, and the game has been coded to know what those things are, and then it makes them happen in the game, so you can drop all kinds of bad buffs on them while they're trying to win levels, and it's actually really cool if you haven't seen it. So stop by Wednesday night. There'll be some Vermintide going on. Thursday, 9 p.m. here. You'll find me full of birthday cake because my birthday party is right before. But I'll be running a horror-based Zweihander game, Terror and Tree Fell. If you want to come see some cool Zweihander action, I am burning one player at the stake this week. You should tune in. There's rules for that. I'm going to make it happen. So definitely hop in Thursday for some Zweihander. Yes, only one for now. Only one of them can cast spells, so she's the only witch, unfortunately. So that's what happens. And then the following night, you'll find me over on our friend channel there, Grim and Perilous Gaming, where I am playing in a Zweihander game, where I'm playing a monk, or a nun, a battle nun. So you'll be able to find me there. And that brings us to the weekend. We don't have Everstorm this week. We're still another week out from another Everstorm game. So
It'll be
that, I think, pretty much covers it for me right now.
absolutely. And the chat's saying that you decided to burn the player, not the character. It's amazing. But it's for our stuff. I will be pushing more my dad's artwork here. So once again, if you are interested in the artwork of David Lee Pancake, lots of dragons and stuff, we have a promo code now, TT2KB Dragon will get you 5% off any order you make on his online store. And if you enjoyed our talk tonight and you want to see more topics, and we've had lots of things we've kind of gone over, lots of guests that have been amazing, and lots of guests coming soon, and you feel like you missed out, go to our YouTube channel. That's going to be Tabletop 2 Keyboard spelled out at YouTube. Almost said Yahoo again. And on there, you will find all of our back catalog, including episodes of Dustin's Terror on Tree Fell.
Terror and Tree Fell. 1 and 2 are up there right now, right?
Yep. I'll have 3 and 4 up here this week for sure.
So it's only 6 hours of watching. You have to get to be caught up at least halfway. So, start now, people. Come on, get caught up already.
Absolutely. So we'll be going ahead and pushing all that content out. You'll have access to it going forward. And we hope to see you guys back here next Monday, 10 p.m. So thank you all for showing up. Thank you very much, Anna, for coming.
For being here,
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And we'll see you all then.